morning baritone. I was speaking all day yesterday, so so I'm kind of dealing with the drier air here. I'm coming in from San Antonio. I got in on Sunday, so I've been in cold weather like this before, but it's not du jour for me. So welcome. What we're going to do first is we're going to talk about inclusive design in action. I'm going to give this presentation about maximizing accessibility in Blackboard. Let me just review. This was presented as a webinar first by a colleague of mine who put this presentation together and shared the slides with me. Welcome. Again, my name is Mike Jester. I work with Blackboard, and I support Danny, who works closely with Umberto. And so we come to campus to sort of help faculty and institutions optimize the LMS and make sure they understand the latest and greatest in terms of the tools, right? I know that managing the LMS is not the only part of your position, and so there's a lot of kind of corners that you don't get to sort of peek around and sort of understand how things work. And so our goal here today is to share with you how to manage accessibility requirements and how the tool Ally works with Blackboard to get you there. But first, what this presentation is about is contextualizing accessibility within education and within the digital space of education specifically. This presentation was created regarding modernizing to Ultra, so helping faculty move from original to Ultra for the first time. So when you see modernizing, what's relevant to you is just when you're moving terms and you're rebuilding your course for next term. It's an opportunity to continue to optimize your course and make decisions about what content is in there and why and how to improve your course over term. We'll review the most common accessibility issues that affect the classroom, and we'll discuss how Ally can support you to remediate them. During the presentation, we'll just be showing slides, and then at about the half-hour mark into speaking, I'll actually open up a Blackboard course and walk through the workflow of how Ally can be used to remediate your courses. Okay. So credit where credit is due. This presentation was created by a colleague of ours, Dr. Katie Grinnell. She works out of Buffalo, and so she put this presentation together for us. So our goal is for you to be able to identify what are the common accessibility issues that you can address, how to apply best practices for accessible course design, and how to develop an accessibility-focused approach to your course development process or your course renewal process from term to term. Okay, so let's talk about first accessibility in education. So disability is a minority status, and it's the only minority group that everyone can and probably will join at some point in their lives. Whether it's a short-term like injury or issue you have to deal with, or as my sight is deteriorating rapidly and bifocals, etc., and how that affects my ability to interact with screens and my inability to lengthen my arm enough to be able to read items on my phone. 26% plus adults in the U.S. can be considered having a disability, 1 in 6 worldwide. When it comes to students, about 60 to 80% of students that may have a disability will not disclose that disability to you. And so that's a challenge because no student has come to me to tell me there's a problem, and it may be because they don't want to disclose it. They don't realize that the fact that they can't access something is a problem that actually can bring to you. They tend to hide, and so we really want to make sure those accessibility practices are part of your course development process or your course remediation process from term to term. So you're kind of casting a wider net so those students get those the benefits of accessibility, even if they don't have to stand up and say, "Hey, I need this." So why is accessibility important in education? Well, one, it supports recruitment. You can reach a greater number of students at your institution. It aligns with your institutional mission here at Triton. It strengthens a sense of belonging and inclusion. It increases the satisfaction when all students can equitably participate. And I would argue that it increases satisfaction both for the instructor and for the students. So if you sort of set the table and serve the food for your banquet of your course, and knowing that all students can participate and eat and they don't have any allergies that affect them in the meal that you serve certainly makes you feel a little bit more safer and secure in terms of how you're providing your content. It supports retention, it strengthens inclusive learning environments, and it reaches a greater number of students, including disabled students. And of course, these are kind of carrots as to why accessibility is important, to sort of internally motivate, like, this is why you want an accessible class. But there are sticks, there are legal requirements in terms of policy and legislation that require equitable access for all students. So I have the reference for this at the very bottom of the presentation. This is from a Georgetown Law Center. But digital accessibility refers to the inclusive practice of removing barriers to prevent interaction with or access to websites, digital tools, and technologies by people with disabilities. So that's sort of the broad definition we're working with when it comes to making content in your course accessible in a digital format. What type of digital content would fall into the purview of digital accessibility? This list is not, forget this is a smartboard. This list is not exhaustive, but it's probably the most common items that you'll encounter in your course where you'll be asked to address accessibility. So Microsoft Word documents, PowerPoints, PDFs, any images you have in the course or in those documents. And then there's this word, it's an acronym, WYSIWYG content. WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what I get. Or sometimes those I's are Y's and what you see is what you get. Does anyone know what WYSIWYG content is? Okay, so if you've ever typed anything into Ultra in the editor, like in the rich text editor box, to build your content, to create an assignment, to make a test, to create a document, that's a WYSIWYG format. It's what you type in and then save, that's what is showing. What you see is what you get. I think your texting interface too, whenever you text something to anybody in your phone, that's a WYSIWYG format. So in order just what this means is the WYSIWYG content is content that you're building within Ultra using Ultra and Ultra tools, whereas these are content items that you might be uploading or adding to the Ultra interface, to the Blackboard interface. And when it comes to what you can remediate and how Ally supports remediation, if your Word document has an issue that needs to be addressed, you have to go into Microsoft Word to address it and then re-upload it to the course. Whereas WYSIWYG content, the content that's you can build in Ultra, you can address right in the Ultra interface for accessibility purposes. Okay? So there's just different workflows for those two different content areas. Why does accessibility matter? Well, accessibility is always the right thing to do. I mean, sure, there's legal requirements that require, like, wheelchair ramps for buildings that have stairs, and you need elevators for certain numbers of floors so that the building is accessible. But it's also, it costs money, but it's the right thing to do for folks that need to access, areas of their courses. It affords learners more autonomy in their learning engagement. They don't have to come to you or feel that the content isn't available to them or they can't interact with it. They have the capability of consuming and learning from that content without having to ask for extra help. It removes barriers or obstacles that prevent disabled or not disabled learners from engaging with learning content. Some of the tools that Ally provides can convert any document into an MP3, so students can listen to it, or if you want to, you can listen to your content on before you teach your class. If you have a longer commute to school. And this means that students or not disabled learners can actually engage with learning content more easily than they could if it wasn't accessible. And inclusive design and accessibility improves the experience for all learners in your course. Okay. So you're getting ready for the new term. Why is it important to focus on accessibility at this juncture? It's always a good time to work on accessibility, but it's an opportune time to review your content, make updates and changes, and ensure content is accessible and inclusive to all students. And because you're getting ready for your new term, you're already in sort of a content course review process. So factoring in time to address accessibility now as part of your workflow, fits in with the larger scope of the project and reduces the need to remediate content later. right? So I know you're in the architecture school, so when you're building something, there's certainly opportune times to sort of add things in so that you don't have to break things down and add them in later in the process, right? So, okay. So a suggested workflow that Dr. Grinnell put across for us is that one, you may have like PDFs in all your courses that may need to be addressed, but she recommends focusing on one course at a time. Do a SWOT analysis. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I believe it's a business term. Conduct an informal SWOT analysis of your existing course content. And after our presentation, Ally has an excellent tool. It's the accessibility report for your course that really reviews what are the strengths and weaknesses that need to be addressed in your course and the opportunities to address them. And then start remediating. Review accessibility of each content item per course and begin making it accessible. So prioritization considerations. Begin with courses that meet one or more of the following factors. So maybe start with the course that's going to be offered earliest. So I'm not sure what your semester structure is at Triton, but sometimes courses are offered like the second part of the term. So you obviously want to start working on the ones that will be working, that students will be in the earliest. These next ones, which one has the most content to sort through or has the most accessibility issues? It's up to you to decide if you want to do the easiest ones first or if you want to take the hardest ones first, right? So do you want to work harder in the beginning and have kind of a smoother runway at the end, or do you want to build your success earlier and then take on the harder ones at the later stage? And if you're deciding between two classes, look at the one that has the most students, right? So maybe look at the one that you can address issues that will affect more students as opposed to a smaller class. Okay, let's look at some common accessibility issues, why they're issues, and how to address them. So first is alternative text, sometimes referred to alt text or image descriptions. Alt text is a description of a photograph or other images used when the images are not visible to the learner. And they may not be visible to the learner because of a sight impairment or, in some cases, poor internet connection, right? If it's a heavy image, sometimes they don't load. So, when you're reading a textbook and there's a picture and sometimes there's a credit on the bottom or a description of the image, this is similar to that, except instead of sort of writing the text underneath the image itself, it kind of codes the description right on the image. So for folks that are sighted, they can just see the image and they understand why it's there. Where those that aren't sighted, the benefits are that assistive technology will be able to read the description and identify that there's an image, and it'll read the description that you've provided for that image. It allows images to be searched. So if you have a Control F and you're searching for an image, it'll actually, that alt text will be part of that search. It ensures all users have access. And again, if you're in a low or poor internet connection scenario, the description will actually load even if the image does not. So how to do this? So if you're talking about a different file, so if you're talking about a Word file or a PowerPoint file that has those images, you just right-click on those images and you'll be selecting View Alt Text from the menu that shows up, and then you can add the alt text there. Microsoft Word and PowerPoint do have an AI tool that will suggest a description for the image. Any AI tool just provides a suggestion as what the image will look like. It has no idea of the context as why it's there. So you can accept that description. Usually it's a good starting point, and you can build out the description as you need to. But you want to keep it short. You want to stay objective. You want to consider the context as to why it's in your course. And images that are unimportant to content should just be marked as decorative. So yesterday, one of the faculty in the course had an image of a cheetah in the savannah. And the image of the cheetah was just to emphasize the next point was that there's more than one ways to skin a cat, right? So that is a decorative image. It wasn't about animals on the savannah or identifying a cheetah and differentiating it from a lion or anything like that. It was just like, hey, here's a cat, and we have a metaphor here. So that would just be marked as decorative, and if it's marked as decorative, you don't need to provide a description. So let's look at this image and discuss what would be the best alt text that fits this image. So the first one, zoomed in image on the face of a brown bear gazing majestically past his hungry pensive. So this one's a little too long. It's a little too subjective, right? It doesn't convey to the learner what the image is about and why it's there. So this wouldn't be the best option. Number two is very descriptive: brown bear, grizzly bear, mammal, carnivore. But it's not very coherent. It doesn't really convey a lot of information. Three, brown bear, true, but it's kind of in the opposite direction. It has very little information. So four, close-up of a brown bear's face is likely the best option. Again, it depends on the context of the course. If this image is decorative, then it would just be decorative. If you're trying to differentiate mammals from insects, maybe it's just close-up of a mammal's face, right? What's important to just refer to context is that you're the expert as to why the image is in the course, and you have to bring that expertise to bear in the alternate text description, and not rely perhaps on the AI tool exclusively to describe the image, so that you bring that expertise to why it's in the course. All right, next issue, color contrast. So color contrast, you have two examples of it in this slide. You have nice white text with a dark background behind it, and you have black text with a white background behind it. So it's the contrast of the color of the text or an image with the background color. And you need sufficient high contrast, which makes it easier to read the text. And it helps learners with visual impairments, color blindness, or low vision. So how? There are built-in accessibility checkers in Microsoft Word and in PowerPoint, or any other maybe text files that you're using there. The challenges with like Microsoft Word or PowerPoint is that unless you use the accessibility checker, it won't tell you that there's a contrast issue. In the Blackboard interface, because it's for education, because we're trying to prioritize accessibility, you do not have the opportunity to sort of put poor contrast colors with black backgrounds. We've limited the palette of colors that you can use in order to put those guardrails in for accessibility. But if you use the accessibility checker in Word or PowerPoint, it will identify some of those contrasts. The challenge is that there is a definition or a good definition of accessibility contrast, but it's not. Microsoft might judge it differently or have a less strict definition than the Ally tool itself. So sometimes PowerPoint will say it's good, but Ally will ask for a stronger contrast. But there are tools like the free color contrast tools like TPGI's Color Contrast Analyzer. Just general tips: use high contrast colors like black on a white background, and do not use color alone to convey meaning. So accessibility tools like a screen reader, they're not going to identify that the color text has changed. And if I have some color blindness, I have sort of red-green color blindness, so the backgrounds of colors, the background color can really affect my ability to interpret what that color is. So the nuances of slight changes of color are totally lost on me, right? And screen readers don't pick it up or identify it as different. If it's just decorative, that's fine, but don't let it get in the way of the capability of students to actually read it. And here's an egregious example of that. So if you highlight it, then wow, that looks easy to read, and then it's really hard to read that yellow text, that bright yellow text on that white background. Faculty don't do this on purpose sometimes or intentionally. Sometimes they've copied content from another area and pasted it into an area that has a different background, and they don't realize that it affects the ability to really access it. Right. Missing headings. So headings provide structure and order within a document, H1, H2, etc. The benefits of using heading styles: it eases navigation. It's critical to learners using assistive technology. How? Is you need to use the built-in style tools of your software to set headings. Manually changing the font will not provide the required background coding. You want to stay sequential, do not skip levels, use heading levels logically. For example, H1 for the main title, H2 for sections. I'll demonstrate this when we're looking at a document. You just want to keep in mind that we've all probably learned from middle school or high school that the title is maybe it's bold, it's centered at the top of the paper, and maybe it's like a different font or a larger font. That visually, for sighted folks, distinguishes that as the title or differentiates that as the title, but it doesn't have the actual code of H1 or H2 for a heading. And so while visually we can assume that's the title, an assistive technology will not qualify that as the title. And so you want to make sure you identify what the title is using those heading tags in Microsoft Word, for example. And the last one we're going to talk about, this is the dreaded scanned PDF. So this is just a scanned image of text, all right? It's akin to probably when we were all in college, we may have gotten one of those packets that we picked up from the copy store that had Xerox copies of several articles. Sometimes you had 2 pages of a book on 1 page, right? And you had this dark seam down the middle of the book, and you sort of taken that experience and just put that in the classroom. So a scanned PDF is a physical document that was scanned as a PDF file to create a digital copy. It's essentially just an image or a photograph of words, right? The problem is that assistive technology cannot read it. It won't identify or read the words for the student. So it's essentially putting a blank piece of paper in front of them. And it can't be searched or easily navigated. And these PDFs often can have handwriting on it, text may be cut off, there'll be poor contrasts, those dark gutters of the seam of the book sometimes. Multiple generations of scans create sort of this digital debris, sort of these almost like the recording of a recording of a recording. It becomes harder to sort of read the text, and there's like coffee stains and all sorts of stuff on actual physical copies of content that's scanned in. What do we do with those? So Microsoft Word allows you to convert a PDF document into a Microsoft Word document. And that will make it readable because it'll be actually text that you can kind of edit and manipulate and move around. In Ultra, you can create an Ultra document to do the same thing. Depending on the complexity of that PDF, sometimes Word provides a better experience than Ultra does. And there's different reasons why you might want to do this and then translate it to an Ultra document or keep it as a Word document. It's kind of up to you in terms of your instructional practices. Digital libraries or collections can locate electronic versions. So if you have an old copy of a journal article, for example, you may be able to access the library, the Gale Virtual Reference Library, JSTOR, Scopus, PubMed, etc., EBSCOhost. You may be able to rely on your research librarian to be able to help you identify that journal article in an electronic version. Consider switching to an open educational resource, or use Anthology Ally to guide you in your remediation process. Adobe Acrobat Pro will allow you to remediate PDFs in Adobe. And I believe here at the CTE, you do have access to Adobe Pro software if you need it. But also, PDFs are kind of an older technology. They were developed for the publishing industry to sort of have an electronic copy before it goes to print as a physical copy. And if you can get away from using PDFs entirely, then look for that option. And that would be like creating that Word document or an Ultra document, which is really more of a digital document where PDFs aren't always an accessible digital experience. Okay. There is also a tool in Ally that helps you remediate a PDF, and I'll be demonstrating that today too. Okay, wrapping things up here. So embrace this opportunity as you're looking at your January term, and every time you're sort of in between your terms and looking at your courses again, to demonstrate both your passion for your subject matter and a commitment to accessible content. Addressing as many accessibility issues now can reduce the time sort of retrofitting and fixing them later. And accessible content is always better. But the goal is not perfection per se, but progress over perfection. Right? So the threshold that Triton has mandated for instructors is 95%. That means that the overall course score has to be 95% as opposed to each individual item that's scored in your course. Right? So while a lot of instructors have an internal motivation to get to 100% because teachers just tend to be that way, look for perfection, look for progress over that perfection score. Okay. I'll share this PDF presentation with Umberto, but here are some additional resources. WebAIM.org and TPGI are non-sort of Blackboard resources that you can use. But Blackboard Ultra and Ally have a lot of accessibility content for you to sort of review. And the community, the Anthology community, will also be a good place to sort of discuss it with other faculty members or other folks within the Blackboard community as to how you address certain, accessibility issues. We also have an exemplary course program. If you have a course you want to sort of submit to be identified as an exemplary course, and accessibility is part of that rubric. Here's some additional Blackboard resources, and this is the source of that quote defining disability. Okay, so I'm going to go out of this document. This is actually in a Blackboard course, and I'm going to show you some of the accessibility tools for Ally. So let me, show you where I am. So I'm just in a module that I've opened up here. And I'm in a folder of sort of readings and resources that I use for this demonstration. So you have Ally on when you see these little gauges here that score your content, and this A here, this download alternative formats. Okay. What I first want to show you though is the accessibility report that you can access in your details and actions menu. So if you're at when you enter your course, you're going to see your content page. You're at the top of your course. On the right-hand side, you're going to scroll down. You'll see details and actions right here. And you're going to see books and tools. Right? I clicked too fast there, sorry. So you want to view your course and institution tools right here. Go ahead and click on that. Now your list is going to be a little different than mine, just because I have some other tools sort of integrated in here. But I believe when I was working in faculty yesterday, you'll see this A accessibility report at the very top of the available tools because it's alphabetical. And this is going to give you sort of an analysis of your course, its content, and its accessibility. So here's the overall score of my course, 78%. That's the score that needs to be at 95% for Triton. This gives an overview of my course and its content. This is not giving me a score at all. It's just telling me that I have 67 items in my course. Most of the instructors we worked with yesterday had more content in the course. This is just kind of a demo course I use, so it's not like it's kind of a Potemkin village, so to speak, of a course. But it just tells me how many Ultra documents I'm using, how many Word documents, how many images I have in the course, etc. So this doesn't give you any information about a score that's good or bad. It just tells you what content is in your course. Here it gives me some choices in terms of content items that have the easiest issues to fix. I have 12 here. And here are the lowest scoring content items that has 12 here as well. Okay. Some of these items, some items that are easy to fix are also the lowest scoring things. So there is some overlap in these 12 items. If I scroll down, I have a more robust report here. So this is issues of severity from most severe to least severe. And this is based on issue, not specific items. So I have one document that's that dreaded scan PDF. I know there's one of them here because it says one right here. 7 documents have contrast issues. 6 documents have tables that don't have any headers. So it's giving me a review of what are the issues that I'll need to address in order to improve my accessibility. I can toggle this down. So this document does not have its language set. I have 6 of those. So these are the least severe ones that may be the easiest to fix, but won't bring up my score that much. Okay. If I scroll to the top of this report, I can also, this is an overview tab, but I can look at the content tab. And the content tab has the items and their score from least to highest score. And you'll see there's, I think there's only 10, I think, on this page, if I count. And then you'll see other pages here. All right? So that's your accessibility report. Just for your benefit, I click through things much quicker than I realize sometimes. So you're at the top of your course. Your course may look different. It may not have a banner. But if you scroll down, you'll see on your right this Details and Actions menu. And you'll see the books and tools underneath it there. And there you can look at your institution tools. This is where you publish your content. A lot of stuff will be also. And here's where you access the accessibility report whenever you want. Now, this report does allow me to jump right into the workflow. So when I went to that content area, I could see that I had this image that has 2 issues. And if I click on it, it'll take me to the Ally page. It'll show a preview of the item that we're looking at and the steps I need to take to address its accessibility. Okay. So this is an image in my course that's missing a description. Now, maybe this image is decorative, so I can just mark it as decorative. So I can indicate the image is decorative. Sorry, let me back up. So I have the image here. This tells me the score of just this content item. I can look at all the issues it has. It's missing a description, and it has contrast issues. Okay, and this will tell me how it will increase the score. So if I address both of these, it will get me up to 100%. Close this here. This image is missing a description. It'll tell you what this means. So this is kind of the information we shared in the presentation and why it matters. So it gives you sort of that educational component as to why we're flagging it and why we need to be concerned with it. And then it gives you tips on how to write a good description. And earlier this year, I believe, early in January, we added, or maybe it was last summer, we added this auto-generate description. So this will give you an AI-generated description of the image. Usually the description is quite robust, but we'll see what it generates here. A math worksheet with multiplication problems arranged in a grid on a wooden surface featuring 24 equations to solve. Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Now, I forget why this image is in my course, so this may just be a decorative image, and if I click it as decorative, then it'll resolve everything. But we don't want to circumvent accessibility just by marking all images as decorative. Otherwise, why would I have them in the course? So this may, depending on the context of what this is here, maybe I just want it to be a worksheet with multiplication problems. I don't really need to convey that it's on a wooden surface and the number of equations, right? Like this is just an example of homework that I may have had when I was in high school or third grade, looks like. So I can decide to delete this. That auto-generated thing is not, it's not like prescriptive. It's not you must accept. You have complete control to edit it. And if I add it, Ally is going to trust that that's the right description. Okay? It's not going to say like, "Are you sure?" because I gave you more information, right? It's going to trust that you're the one that knows the context of the course, and that's brought it up to 75%. So this will remediate the content where it is in the course, and then I can go on to the next issue as I want to. Okay. It has contrast issues if I want to bring it all the way up. And to get contrast issues, I would need to get a different image to sort of relieve that contrast. Okay. Let me close this, and if I close that there, it'll take me back to this content list that I'd opened up. And that image will now be somewhere over here in that 75% range, because it's still not at 100%. That shows me all the great content I have. There it is, right? So it rearranges everything for you according to that score there, okay? This is that content tab versus the overview tab. Now let's look at, that's how you can do something with a course that's kind of built out or complete, where you've put in content, you kind of want to see where you're at. But you notice when I was in my module, I also had some Ally tools looking at me also there. Okay, so this is a Word document I've added. It's a syllabus for a Spanish class, and I see this score here. And if I click on that score, it's going to take me to that Ally remediation page, where I'll see a preview of the document here, and I'll see the issues on the right as to what I need to address to make this content more accessible. And it's going to do it any moment now. I'm being impatient here. Okay, come on. All right, so it's at 48%, it has medium accessibility. I just want to point out that you have this content up here. Now this may, in your understanding, like, oh, I have a title on this, like there's a title on this document. But if it isn't tagged, it doesn't have a title for assistive technology. Okay? So as a Word document, when I look at the issues, it doesn't have headings, and it contains tables that are missing headers. Okay? Now, because it's a Word document, how to add headings, I have to open the original document in Microsoft Word to address the content. I can't do it from this screen like I was able to do with the image that I uploaded to Ultra. So it either says locate this document, maybe I have this on my computer, or it tells me to download it here. And there it is. Right? And then it gives me information for Microsoft Office as to how to mark headings in Microsoft here. Okay. And when I finish completing this document in Microsoft Word, I can then just drag it and upload it here, and it'll replace the document that's in the course. Okay. Now, when you go into Microsoft Word, I have to enable editing here, and I believe that here in the review setting, you can check accessibility. And here it will give you the tips on how to manage accessibility in the document. Okay. Now, there's another way to manage content like this in Blackboard that doesn't require you to work in Microsoft Word and then re-upload the content into Ultra. And let me show you that. So I'm going to go back into my Ultra course. I'm going to close this ally thing here. And so I was using a syllabus document in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this syllabus document, this Word document, into an Ultra document. Okay? So when in Ultra, I have these little plus signs, and that allows me to add content in the area where the plus sign is. So for this case, I'm just going to put it right above the syllabus that I already have in the course. Hit plus. I'm going to click on Create because I'm creating Ultra content, and I'm going to select Document. Okay. That workflow again is you're going to add the plus sign where you want to add the content. You're going to select Create, and then go ahead and select the document. All right. So now this document, I'm going to put the title in. We'll call it my Spanish 101 syllabus. And although I have a 100% accessibility score here, it's because I have no content in here, so I do need to do some more work. And so the choices I have here, this is the WYSIWYG interface, right? So this is rich text editor here. I can add content. I can type out. I could take my syllabus and Control A, copy all, and then just paste it into here if I wanted to. But you notice that, let me delete this. In the menu here, I have convert a file also. Okay, so I can go ahead and click on that. I can find the file I want to convert. And it's going to convert that document, kind of in a copy-paste fashion, into the Ultra interface. Now, I may have to do some work with this document if I want it. These bullet points didn't come out visually the way I wanted them to come out. I believe in the original document they were like these diamond-shaped ones, and so Ultra has a more simpler interface, so it doesn't have sort of those different kind of bullet options per se. And already I'm at 65%. The Word document was 48%, so it's a little bit more accessible. So I can start working in this document. If I can find the title, maybe this is the title, I can tag this as the title or the header, right? I can start manipulating this content. But I do have this handy tool here. This is an AI tool that we've integrated into Ultra called Auto Generate Your Layout. And as you saw kind of when you had this plus sign here, these are kind of web design tools, so to speak, to sort of build your Ultra document to look more like a web page. And so what this tool will do is it will look at the content and it will try to generate a layout that's a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more sort of web page looking friendly. Okay. So while it's generating that layout, there's some settings that you can play with. Its default setting is to use stock images from Unsplash. Has anybody used Unsplash images in their course? So Unsplash images, it's a library that we've made accessible to you. It comes at no extra cost in your license of thousands upon thousands of royalty-free high-definition images. The banner I had on my course I pulled from Unsplash. A lot of the module images I pulled from Unsplash. You could also have it generate images. Generating images takes a little bit more time. Now this is just a Spanish syllabus. It's not like a zoological class, right? That might have a lot of neat keywords to sort of pull cool images in of animals or things like that. So I may not have some dynamic fun images here. It also includes a knowledge check. A knowledge check is just kind of like a little multiple choice question that queries the student on the content. For the syllabus, I may not want a knowledge check, but it's there as well. If I don't want those items, I can kind of unclick them. Oh, here, I can uncheck images in general, and then just generate the document without those. Okay, well, let's just see what was generated here. So it looks like it added a title, kind of added this image, and look, it has Spanish in there. That's kind of cool. And it's kind of broken it up into these blocks, these content blocks. Now, it didn't quite adhere to sort of the listing that I had, so maybe I want to edit that. I can't edit it in here yet. I have to decide whether or not I want to apply the layout at all. When I scroll to the very bottom, I'll see the I'll see the knowledge check it generated. What are the maximum allowed absences for the Spanish class that afford an exception grade? And the answer is 3 absences. I'd have to verify that. This is auto-generated content, so I need to make sure that's correct within my syllabus. If I decide to apply the layout, now I have complete editorial control if I want to change things or move things around. Okay? So for some reason, this is probably supposed to be in week 2, so I'm going to cut that, delete that block, and then add it to week 2. Oh, there we go. Then I paste. Okay. And then I can pull this around. So I can adjust it the way to make it looks like the way I want. But let's scroll up to the top and see what's happened to the score. So it's brought the score from, I think it was 60 something percent now to 98. Now 90%, but you want to make sure that maybe this title should be the course syllabus, not the course overview. Right? But it's getting us closer there. And this is a different experience than using for the student than using the using a Word document. One thing, it's HTML, so it's a little bit more mobile friendly. Right? It shrinks down to different size screens appropriately. You know, it's searchable. If you need to present this as a document, you can still print the document, save it as a PDF if you need to. Students can do the same thing, so they have the same access to it as it would be as a document you've uploaded here. And this process will work for PDFs, for PowerPoints. Although converting a PDF to the Ultra document format, I find if the PDF is quite busy with very different columns and images, sometimes Microsoft Word has a better fidelity for that. And also for PowerPoints, whether that PowerPoint is a PDF or a PowerPoint, because you can manipulate PowerPoints to a really kind of hyper extent in terms of where you can add those items. That formatting you may want to sort of review to see how it kind of fits on the sort of Ultra document page. Right. So this is one way to take your content and make it more accessible and in a much sort of easier workflow than going into Microsoft Word and add everything and then moving everything there. And Umberto, do you have a question?
Question. So if our faculty want to take advantage of this particular feature, and they're using the knowledge check component, does that get added into the gradebook?
Oh, good question. So the knowledge check is just an informal query of this information. It's not connected to the gradebook. Our product team is looking at whether or not that would be a good idea and how they might do something like that. But we don't want to convert Ultra documents into a sort of a test format. Right. Any questions about some of the things I've gone through yet? Okay. So in this particular process, I did have I did have to rebuild this document. I did this yesterday. I had to delete it, so it's showing up here twice. You'll notice that an Ultra document doesn't have a score on it, this meter on it here facing the page. That score will show up when you are in the document itself and you're in the edit stage, is when you get that meter up there. Okay, and I actually forgot to check that meter here. So this item contains a table that are missing some headers, and this is a nice tool as well. We have a competitor that kind of advertises a magic button that will say it'll do all the content for you. And that's one way to go, except that the challenge with accessibility is context matters, and the information and the expertise of the instructor as to why the content is there and what they put in there is really important. So for example, a magic button may not be able to identify that this table is missing, since it's missing a header, it doesn't quite know if the header is the first row, the first column, or the first row and column. And for a rubric, it's actually the first row and column. And so context is important, and your understanding of your content is important. And so this will just, this will bring us up to 100%. And I can be confident that I was the one that understands sort of how the rubric was organized and what are the actual headers for the student for their assistive technology. Okay. But regardless of where this score shows up, it's instructor facing, it's not student facing. And even though you don't see it, oops, save this. Even though you're not seeing it on this front page here, the accessibility report does pick it up and does use it for. You will be able to access it in the accessibility report as well. Okay. All right. Next thing I want to show is here is a document I have for Ally. I mentioned how Ally doesn't have it doesn't have contrast options like this to sort of put you in trouble. So there's better guardrails in there. But if you copy and paste something into Ultra, it will adhere to what you're copying and pasting in. So in this situation, if I edit the content and look at its accessibility, I have 89%. And here, because I'm in the WYSIWYG interface, I can address these contrast issues right within the interface itself. And so these items have insufficient contrast. It gives me more information about what that means. It gives me options that are sufficient contrast. And I have the option to select that and apply it to all 4 occurrences and just go on my merry way. Okay? Yes?
Do you have an option to preview that, or does it lock you in? For example, let's say you pick the olive green one, you're like, oh shoot, and like the red one, so everybody has to go back.
There is, well, you wouldn't be editing it in the Ally screen itself if you didn't like the color. And I'm not going to apply it here just because I want to save this example for my next demonstration. So let's say I apply it, I don't like the color. I would still have the opportunity to go into here and edit and then choose the color here that I would like to use. Okay. So you'd have options to sort of change the colors to your liking that are still high contrast. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. So let's come out of this one. Now here is a scanned PDF. Now if I try to click and like try to find this content information, it doesn't allow me to because it's just an image of text, right? But if I pull out of here and go ahead and select this gauge, here I have this 0% score, and I do have a tool. It's called OCR. OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition. Fancy scanners in the library or at FedEx or printer things will be able to, and sometimes your phone also. I think I have an HP app on my phone from my printer, and it will take an image of paper and it'll try to identify all the text that's on the page. Okay, so we've integrated this tool into Ally so that you can apply OCR to the text and adds a hidden layer, making the content accessible without changing its appearance. Okay, now this is one way to address a scanned PDF. It's kind of close to an easy button. Or you can learn how to fix PDFs. The workflow for a scanned PDF, one, it says maybe you can get a hold of the original text-based version. That's something maybe your library can support you with, or the library tools, the research libraries there, if it's a scholarly article, for example. You can also, if you don't have access to that, then can it be found in the library? No. This document needs further attention. You may be able to address it using Adobe Pro. Sometimes Adobe Pro has that tool, and that can be done here at CTE. But let's close out of here, and maybe those options aren't available and you need this tomorrow, so you need something that's kind of accessible. Let's use the Ally tool here. So we're going to preview and apply. So it's going to do its best to scan this document and identify the text. Okay, so now if I click on it, you'll see I can copy and paste, against, et cetera, so it's there. But you'll also notice that like this kind of long dragged out column comes in here, so it's not the most accessible document, right? But say it's as best as I can get. Let's see what happens. Now, important, this action will update the current file version and cannot be undone. So it says maybe you want to download, it gives you the option to download the original file so you have it on your computer. Okay, so let's do that. We're going to apply. And just what it means by undone is that in order to undo it, you have to delete this from your course and then re-upload the scanned PDF. All right, so this happened yesterday. So if I just go back, there it is. So it brought it up from 0 to 66%. And there's still an issue. It says the PDF does not have a title. So now I can add that title. Spelling right? No, it's not. And apply that fix. And so it's just going to bring it up a shade to 67%. But I've successfully added the title to the PDF file. There's some issues to resolve. It's an OCR version, so sometimes with OCR versions, it might not catch the right word, and there's kind of some visual kind of clutter, and you can't tag the images in a scanned PDF either. So it's better. It's progress over perfection. It's more accessible for your students. It's not perfect, but it's the best we can do. So here we have now in this course, we'll see that scanned PDF is now green because it's at 67%. Okay. The last thing I just kind of wanted to cover is what this A means here. This is the downloadable alternative formats that we provide both you and students. So these are the different formats that can make the content more accessible for students. So for example, you can view it as an HTML file for browsers and mobile devices. Because this was a Word document I select, you can download it as a tagged PDF. You can download it as an e-reader format, so you can read it on your Kindle. Electronic Braille, you can download it as an MP3 version, so you can listen to the content. This is great, for students who may have a long commute or walking their dog and want to listen to the content, or to be able to listen to it and read it at the same time, so it kind of increases focus. Beeline Reader is kind of a fun tool. Let's go here. So Beeline Reader, you can actually set it to night mode, like the dark mode for content, and it has these color gradients that some people appreciate because it helps them track the line. So it goes from light to blue to light, right? So you can kind of see where lines start and end. And this is just a syllabus Word document. This will work for a PDF or for other content you have as well. Let me go back here. The last one I want to show is the immersive. Oh, you can translate it to many different languages here. Immersive Reader is a Microsoft product that has some really cool features. This connection is reset.
Yeah, I have to go. I'm a faculty librarian.
Mm-hmm.
If we can help you over the break with finding things that are not in PDF form, we'd be happy to. Different arguments. Okay, so call us, make an appointment.
Thank you so much. So let's look at Immersive Reader. These tools just might be helpful to cover the first day of class so your students know that they're there. And why is it not coming up for me? I'm going to just log out and log back in. Sometimes when I'm in a course for a long time, my test server, this happens. Okay. I'm not sure why this isn't working for the immersive reader content. But the immersive reader provides a recording mode as well. You can change the size and font of the text. Let's see if I can get another document here. And even in your Ultra documents, you'll see that students have it up here at the top. Now they don't have the HTML version here because it's already in HTML because you're in a web version. All right, so this is Immersive Reader. Here you can press play and read along while listening.
Spanish 101 course syllabus.
Okay. You also can change sort of the font size. You can put it in dark mode here or other color contrasts if you like. You have a whole variety here. You can change the font to something that might be more pleasing. You can increase spacing or size, so it might be easier for you to read on your tablet, for example. You can even change the focus of a line. So you can kind of, scrunch down and kind of almost look at like almost speed reading capabilities, so to speak. And, oops, a lot of that. And it'll also provide, you can even highlight nouns, for example, for like ESL courses. This might be very helpful, or for second language learners. Speakers of English as a second language might find this quite helpful to identify all these different content items in the course. You can click on any one word, and it'll tell you sort of how to pronounce it.
Elementary.
Yeah, I think it even gives you some definitions, developing. And this is all, it can even, for the syllables, it breaks it up too. So it's a really nice tool to support a translation to different languages also. So that is the alternative formats that are available for both students and yourself in the Ultra course via Ally. So right now we have a few minutes left. I'm not sure if you have specific questions about your course or any challenges that you foresee. Yes.